Shot glass of recovery, working the 12 steps, listen to fellows speak. You can listen in wherever you may be. It's a shot glass of recovery.
Hi, I'm Lisa, the host of A Shot Glass of Recovery. Thanks for joining me again today. If this is your first time listening, welcome. You're in the right place. Isn't it amazing to discover you're no longer alone? That's exactly what this podcast is all about, carrying the message of hope I found in the rooms of recovery. Who knew those cold, hard chairs in church basements and clubhouses would hold so much healing? If you love what you hear, please take a moment to support the show by liking, subscribing, and following us on iTunes, Spotify, and Podbean. Your support helps us grow and reach others on their recovery journeys. We'd also love to hear from you. Leave a review and share how this podcast has impacted your path. Your feedback means so much to us. You can also send an email to ashotglassofrecovery@gmail.com. And to keep A Shot Glass of Recovery pouring out fresh content, consider making a financial contribution at paypal.me/A Shot Glass of Recovery. Whether it's $1 or $25, your generosity keeps this community thriving, and we are so grateful for your support. On today's episode, we've got something special for you, a Lisa pontification. These are the moments where I dive into my personal inventories, journals, or riff off a page of recovery literature. So, grab your shot glass of recovery, it's one for the road, and let's get into it. And one final note, the opinions I share are mine alone. They do not represent Alcoholics Anonymous, nor do I consider myself speaking for AA as a whole. Hi, everybody. I'm Lisa, a host of A Shot Glass of Recovery, and thank you. I see a lot of new faces in here today. I'm glad to have new and old faces, people returning, people sticking around for, what was it Miss Stacy said? I think this is episode 45 of Just the Big Book Study. And then we also have the speaker edition where we upload a speaker every week from my home group, AA Solution Seekers in Toronto. So we've got some great recovery messages for everybody. Hopefully you like, subscribe, and follow the show. And there's also a PayPal link in the show notes on iTunes and Podbean. If you want to support the show and pay for the platform, that is appreciated as well. If you can't, then what you can do is subscribe, like, follow, share, review, and just tell everybody about it. And we'll try to keep carrying the message of recovery and hope. And that's hopefully what we're going to do today. I really do find that this chapter is teaching us a lot of the things that we've already learned. It's full of reminders like to be patient, loving, tolerant, and it's titled The Family Afterwards. And this isn't a chapter just for the family. We might think that, like we learned in the last chapter, 2 wives was just for the wives, but it was not. It was for us as well, the alcoholic member of the family. And here's a test. If you're new, this is one of those tests where we get to practice a principle. And the principle is not to have contempt prior to investigation. Because if you're a woman, the first sentence is going to send you into a seething cauldron of, rage and debate. You might want to burn the book if this is the first time you're ever reading it. And the first line says, "Our women folk." All right. So I might have stopped right there and burnt the book. So thank God I didn't open it up on this chapter. But one of the things we've learned throughout the Big Book Study is that, one of the things that needs to change in order for me to be okay and right in the world is I need to stop expecting other people to behave the way I want them to. And I think this chapter is going to talk a lot about that. So I might not like the way that is worded, but then I have to remember things like it was written in 1939. It was written mostly by men. And everything else leading up into this sentence has shown me a new way of living. It has helped me readjust to a life that I was maladjusted to before. So maladjusted, I needed liquor to cope. So I've learned to get over language that can irritate me. I've learned that I'm the problem in Alcoholics Anonymous. And that's good news today. right? I'm not putting myself down anymore. I'm not beating myself up. The good news is, if I'm the problem, I'm the thing that I can change. I can't change the literature. I can't change what has already been written. I can't change my partner. I can't change my employer. I can't change the way someone else drives on the highway. But I do have the power to change my thinking and therefore my feeling about life in general. And so that's what I do if I read a line in a page of the big book that irritates or irks me a little bit, right? I remember, oh yeah, that's an old attitude. I don't have to have that. I don't have to get bothered by that. They're just saying our partners. Okay? So if you get to a word that kind of bothers you or I don't like this word either, triggers you. I once did a podcast episode. It was called Fuck You and the Triggers You Wrote In On. So another, that's why the only reason this show has an explicit rating is because sometimes I cuss. So, and I want people to be prepared in case they're listening with a child in the car to know that there might be a cuss word. So anyway, and you know what? And if you're probably under 30, you might not get that joke because trigger was a horse and now trigger means something different. So anyway, and I digress a lot. So if you have ADHD, you're going to feel right at home. It's like all over the place. Okay, so our women folk, I'll get back to the literature now. Sometimes I actually read what's on the page. Chapter 9, The Family Afterward, page 122. It's where we're starting. Our women folk have suggested certain attitudes a wife may take with the husband who is recovering. Perhaps they created the impression that he is to be wrapped in cotton wool and placed on a pedestal. Now, if you were with us for the last, 15 episodes as we trudged through two wives, that was definitely a feeling a lot of us were getting, right? Gosh, like we have to put kid gloves on when we're dealing with this alcoholic partner of ours. And no, really, the message from the last chapter was, in order for the partner of the alcoholic to keep some sanity, to realize you can't change the alcoholic. No amount of begging, no amount of anger, no amount of threats, no amount of taking those pledges and sweet promises is going to get you what you want. So it was all about acceptance, but it certainly wasn't about just taking abuse. We talked about that too. If you have an alcoholic partner, you by no means need to take abuse. I think it talked to the partners of alcoholics about setting boundaries. But the main message too is about letting go of expectations. And I think we're going to learn a little bit about that here in this chapter as well. So I've highlighted this. Successful readjustment means the opposite. So in other words, we're not wrapping them in cotton wool and placing them on a pedestal like, oh, look at you. Yay, gold star, you got sober. You know, millions of other people have gotten sober and didn't drink and they didn't get an award, a medal, a coin, or a reward. They just stopped drinking and they didn't cause a whole lot of havoc like we did beforehand. So we're not going to, wrap these people in cotton and put them on a pedestal. I underlined and highlighted this. All members of the family should meet upon the common ground of tolerance, understanding, and love. Sometimes I circle words that stick out to me, so those ones would stick out. Tolerance, understanding, and love. And us as the alcoholics, we know that our family members may have been just full fed up and frustrated with us, and they might not be operating from a place of tolerance, understanding, and love. And what are you going to do about that? I want to remind people, as you read The Family Afterwards, it might be good to go back and read page 61. Okay, we'll get to that in a minute. This involves a process of deflation, right? We deflate our ego when we come in as alcoholics. We have to, because we have to change our thinking. We have to stop thinking that we know better than everybody else and that maybe I'm different, maybe I'm special and unique. That's what ego deflation is all about, changing the way we think. The alcoholic, his wife, his children, his in-laws, each one, here's the line, highlight this, each one is likely to have fixed ideas about the family's attitude towards himself or herself. And I've highlighted this whole right down to the end of the paragraph. Each is interested in having his or her wishes respected. We find the more one member of the family demands that the others concede to him, the more resentful they become. This makes for discord and unhappiness. Now let's just for fun go back to page 61. That rhymes. What usually happens, it says on page 61, the show doesn't come off very well. He begins to think life doesn't treat him right. He decides to exert himself more. He becomes, on the next occasion, still more demanding or gracious, as the case may be. See, can you see how this ties in with the expectations of the family towards the alcoholic? And also for us towards them? Has anyone here ever said, like, what do you want from me? I got sober. I'm not drinking anymore. Did you say it like that? I'm not drinking anymore. What do you want from me? That's called white knuckling it. I haven't had a drink in a week. And I want to kill you, but I'm not. Oh, do you want a medal? Right? We want other people to behave the way we want them to behave. So I think that going back to 60, 61 to 63 and reading that over helps us with the understanding that we need to have. It's about letting go of expectations. We are not the director. We have a new director. We've already discovered that in this reading, in the book, sorry. We have a new employer. We're not it. We don't get to decide how other people are going to behave. Some of us have been fortunate. And when we got sober and we adapted this way of living, this design for living, and we began to change our attitudes, our behaviors, our thinking, our outlook upon life, we managed to keep the family that we came in with. Some of us didn't. Maybe it was too late. It wasn't enough. Some people get well, they outgrow their family, and they decide that maybe they don't want to be with the family that they were sick with. So it's not always a happy ending, but it is always about tolerance, understanding, and love. Right, we're on the second paragraph. This makes for discord and unhappiness. And why? Is it not because each wants to play the lead? See, they're doing the throwback here. That's why I took you back to page 61 to 63. Here we are talking about the actor again. Is not each trying to arrange the family show to his liking? Is he not unconsciously trying to see what he can take from the family life rather than give? And just a little caveat to the alcoholics in the room. Do not give this book to your partner, your family members, and show them where they are going wrong. Just a little word of advice. Been there, done that, doesn't work. Didn't end well for me. I'm one of those people who does not have the same family I came into AA with because I did not follow instructions or listen. All right. Is he not unconsciously trying to see what he can take from the family life rather than give? There's that selfish, self-centered, self-seeking nature again. Now, here's a good one for us alcoholics to underline. Cessation of drinking is but the first step away from a highly strained, abnormal condition. So just one step. It's just a beginning. Putting down the drink is just a beginning. And we've also talked about this a lot. Alcohol was my solution. Alcohol was what I used to cope with life's difficulties. And then it created problems. And then it was a shitty solution that didn't work anymore. Right? And it caused more harm than it helped. So I had to put it down. But then when I put down the drink, I have no solution to life. Now I'm really lost. And if you're lucky, like me, or maybe there's some kind of grace, then you find your way to Alcoholics Anonymous. And if you have a little bit more grace, then you develop an open mind. And you learn to listen and you learn to follow some of the directions that are outlined in this book, and things begin to change for you. A doctor said to us, years of living with an alcoholic is almost sure to make any wife or child neurotic. The entire family is, to some extent, ill. Let families realize, as they start their journey, that all will not be fair weather. Each in his turn may be footsore and may straggle. There will be alluring shortcuts and bypaths down which they may wander and lose their way. And we hear these all the time in meetings. People talk about the other things. I've seen people get a little bit well, a little bit sober, and then they're like, ooh, and then I discovered yoga. And then they stop doing AA and they just do yoga. And they become a guru. What else? Or some people just find church and then they just go to church and they forget that they're an alcoholic. Do both. There's nothing wrong with going to church, and there's nothing wrong with going to yoga, and there's certainly nothing wrong with having a therapist. But just because you find those other things, make sure that you understand them as add-ons. They're add-ons. Don't trade in what got you well in the first place, what you began your journey on. So we don't want to take shortcuts, but we can do other things. We want to do add-ons. I love add-ons. I like yoga. I like weightlifting. I like going for a walk in the woods. I like meditation. I like sitting here and waiting for a hummingbird to come. That's my meditation. Walking in the wood, running off a dock and jumping in the water and hitting the cold, just for a break. Like, wonderful. Other options. See, I have a therapist on retainer. I know a lot of you like, yeah, that does not surprise me, Lisa. You are that fucked up. You have a therapist on retainer. No, I just think it's a good thing because you know what? Now I can afford it. I couldn't afford it before, and for years I didn't get help. But now that I have benefits, she's just there. Sometimes we just check in. We have a cup of tea. By the way, virtually. I don't go see her in person, so I'm taking back that statement I made off the air earlier. Anyone here will know what I'm talking about. If you want to know what I'm talking about, make sure you come to one of these in-person ones at 5:00 in the AA Solution Seekers room. All right. Suppose we tell you some of the obstacles. We're at the top of page 123. I know it's hard to follow along. Suppose we tell you some of the obstacles a family will meet. Suppose we suggest how they may be avoided, even converted to good use for others. Do you remember the other day, Solution Seekers will remember, one of our members in the meeting did their lead on this book. And I'm like, that's amazing, because I have never talked about that phrase. And it apparently was uttered 51 times in the big book. This book, this book, this book. So now I have more homework to do. I've got to go back through this book and find those. It spoke to me that much. So guess what? In this book, I call this the How to Live Life Manual for Dummies. This is a how-to manual for me. How to live life successfully. In this book, in this chapter, The Family Afterwards, the main purpose is to suggest to us what obstacles can be avoided and how to do so. And then if you didn't avoid them, they're going to also show us, hey, look, this is what we did wrong. And then maybe we can learn from what the people before us did wrong. So I like that. The main purpose of this book, of course, is to carry a message and help us. The family of an alcoholic longs for the return of happiness and security. They remember when father was romantic, thoughtful, and successful. Today's life is measured against that of other years, and when it falls short, the family may be unhappy. Can anyone see the pitfall there? People living in the past. One of the C's of ego is comparison. Another C of ego is complaining, right? So if we're complaining about things not being good enough today, we're probably comparing it to something before. So we're living in the past. We're not living in the present. Family confidence in dad. And remember, again, not all alcoholics are dads. I am not a dad, but I am an alcoholic. So you can change these words in your own head when you see things like that to the alcoholic. So family confidence in the alcoholic is rising high. The good old days will soon be back, they think. Sometimes they demand that dad bring them back instantly. And then what happens, right? The pressure, the overwhelming pressure, the reminder of past failures. The father, the head of the household, the mother, whoever it is, thinks, wow, we'd be in a different place if it hadn't have been for me, if I hadn't loused this up so badly with my drinking. And then the self-pity comes in, and we get stuck in that bitter morass once again. So these things can happen if we are not spiritually fit. Sometimes they demand that dad bring them back instantly. God, they believe, almost owes them this recompense on a long overdue account. But the head of the house has spent years in pulling down structures of business, romance, friendship, health. These things are now ruined or damaged. So what they're talking about here is time. Things take time. If you break your leg, You don't get up and walk without going to the doctor, getting a cast, letting it heal. You can't walk even with a cast. You need a crutch. You need to give it time to heal. Time. Heal. Patience. What was it they said? The words we circled? Love, understanding, tolerance. It will take time. Circle the word time to clear away the wreck. Though old buildings will eventually be replaced by finer ones, the new structures will take years to complete. I would highlight or underline that. New structures will take years to complete. I also heard my good friend in her lead the other day talk about for the first 8 years, she didn't really do any of the things that were suggested in Alcoholics Anonymous. And I remember us having a conversation because that was me. 8 years. I had 2 relapses in 8 years. And stupidly, I kept doing things my way. And then eventually I came back to Alcoholics Anonymous and I surrendered and I started to do things the way someone else was suggesting it for a change and realized it's called Alcoholics Anonymous, not Lisa's Anonymous. And that was in part what was taking me years to rebuild my life was my own thinking, my own obstinance, my own defiance. So, and then sometimes it's just time, takes time to heal, takes time for us to heal physically. A lot of us did a lot of damage to our bodies when we were drinking and doing other things. We've damaged our livers, so it's going to take time to recover. Father knows he is to blame. So the alcoholic knows, we know, right? That was why 2 Wives was so hard for many of us to read, because it's that stark reminder of the hurt that we caused when we were in our full-blown alcoholism. It may take him many seasons of hard work to be restored financially, but he shouldn't be reproached. Perhaps he will never have much money again, but the Wise family will admire him for what he is trying to be, rather than for what he is trying to get. And with this, I would pause here because there is an opportunity for the alcoholic who has a family that is not practicing love or tolerance or understanding to get a little bit bitter and resentful. Like I said, I had a family that didn't stick around, that my family left. And if I was reading this back then, I would have been a little bit bitter and angry. But I have to be reminded that I'm also the one that needs to practice understanding, love, and tolerance. And I need to accept that maybe the damage was done for that family. Now and then the family will be plagued by specters from the past. For the drinking career of almost every alcoholic has been marked by escapades. Funny, humiliating, shameful, or tragic. The first impulse will be to bury these skeletons in a dark closet and padlock the door. The family may be possessed by the idea that future happiness can be based only upon forgetfulness of the past. We think, this is a good line, we think that such a view is self-centered and in direct conflict with the new way of living. Because what have we been taught in Alcoholics Anonymous? We've been taught that we do not regret the past, nor wish to close the door on it. We can't learn from things if we bury them. If we refuse to face them, we can't learn from them. We can't grow. We can't become accountable. We can't take responsibility for our actions if we're like, nope, that wasn't me. That never happened. Yep. So we have to have accountability. Henry Ford once made a wise remark to the effect that experience is the thing of supreme value in life. That is true only if one is willing to turn the past to good account. If you know anything about history and Henry Ford, I'm wondering if that came back to bite him. Anyway, probably an outside issue, so that's all I'll say about that. But I would highlight those couple of sentences. That experience is the thing of supreme value in life. That is true only if one is willing to turn the past to good account. I don't know about you guys, but I really feel that some of my best learning has come from my biggest and most masterful mistakes. Especially the big fuck ups. It's like, I do not want to go through that again. So And here's how. I'm not going to do that. I'm going to avoid that pain and suffering. Sometimes I learn, that line, pain is the touchstone or the pathway to peace. That really spoke to me. That one spoke to me a lot. I think that's how I learn. And I don't typically tend to learn if things are easy and gentle. It has to be kind of hard and obvious for me to learn, to change. We grow by our willingness to face and rectify errors and convert them into assets. The alcoholic's past, I have this highlighted and underlined, so I think it's important. The alcoholic's past thus becomes the principal asset of the family, and frequently it is almost the only one. So if our past is the principal asset in recovery, if any of you are on the third step and you're about to get into the fourth step, remember that phrase. Your past is your principal asset. So don't avoid your fourth step. Don't leave anything out in your fourth step. You will be gypping yourself, shortchanging yourself. Okay. I also have a little note here I wrote to myself. Sometimes the rest of the family stays sick and stuck in the past unless they too change their behaviors and attitudes. But we must remember we have no control over the behaviors of others. That was clearly a personal note to myself. It may apply. This painful past may be of infinite value to other families still struggling with their problems. So here now, we remember where would you have me go and what would you have me be, right? What is our main purpose today? Our main purpose is to be of maximum use to our higher power. And when I'm doing that, then I'm not acting out of self. So the main purpose of this book is to help alcoholics recover. And the main purpose of this chapter is to use our past and our experience, our brokenness, to help other people learn how to get through it, learn how to recover. We think each family which has been relieved owes something to those who have not. Sounds familiar? Step 12 for the alcoholic. They're speaking to the families about how we can help other people. And when the occasion requires, each member of it should be only too willing to bring former mistakes, no matter how grievous, out of their hiding places. And this today is done by members of Alateen, Al-Anon, the family groups, the Al-Anon family groups. And sometimes maybe if you're not even a part of those groups, but you have an alcoholic in your family, you might just unknowingly carry a message and help other people. Showing others who suffer how we were given help is the very thing which makes life seem so worthwhile to us now. Cling to the thought that in God's hands, the dark past is the greatest possession you have, the key to life and happiness for others. Who knew? The dark past in my hands, in my mind, leads to isolation, self-abuse, punishment, remorse, pity, guilt, and then usually drunkenness. But the dark past, put in the hands of God, everything changes, which is why it's so important that we develop that relationship and that conscious contact with our higher power to help guide us every day. And I love that line. I had a new way of looking at this line on page 86, I think it is. Give me one second. Being still inexperienced and having just made conscious contact with God. Remember that every day we're inexperienced in the day that we're in. And every day is an opportunity for me to make conscious contact with God every morning. So I have to remember that every day. All right, so I'm putting this dark past in God's hands, and God turns it into a key. God's like the wizard, an alchemist. Put something dark, like a lump of coal, in the hands of God, poof, magician, turns it into a key to life and happiness for others. And isn't that what AA has been? It's been that for me. It was a key to understanding life, a key to learning how to deal with life on life's terms for me. With it, you can avert death and misery for them, for the new people who have come, who are struggling with the alcoholic family member. I also wrote down here, my sponsor said this to me when we did my 5th, and I talked about the trauma from my childhood and what happened to me. And I was crying, and I said, I don't understand why that had to happen to me. Why did that have to happen to me? And he said, maybe the only reason those terrible things happened to you were so that one day you could lead others out of the darkness. You know, that's not a philosopher. That's a construction worker from Tirana. I don't think those words came from him. He spoke from the heart, and out of his mouth, I believe, came words from God. Maybe the only reason you went through that was so that one day you could lead others out of darkness into light. And that phrase has gotten me through some really dark times, and it has really helped me. And helping other people continues to help me, because I see goodness has come from darkness in the past. What time is it? I'll just finish with, let's see. You know what? It's 5:34, so I'm going to pause there. I'm going to get my little sticky note. This is page 124, and next time we will start with, it is possible to dig up past misdeeds so they become a blight, a veritable plague. That sounds like fun. I can't wait. Let's pick up there. All right. So this now opens the sharing portion of the meeting. There's no timer. Just sort of, be mindful if you see some other hands. You can raise your hand at this meeting, and you can, I believe, unmute yourself. That would be great. And send me a message in the chat if you do want to share at the end of the meeting. I will check that now. Oh, Carla, thank you. And Samantha, thank you. You guys are putting it. I should have made you co-host. You could have put that in there. Thank you. All right. Whoever wants to share, go ahead. Jay.
Hello?
Come on in. You unmuted, so I guess that means you're first.
I am. I've been unmuted the whole.
Oh.
But that's all right. I'll share. I don't know whether it has anything to do with. Well, I guess it has to do with everything. I was thinking today. I was mentioning to Bev, all the ridiculous, in the insanity of it all in the past. All the. I started to, think about. I remember going over to visit some friends and stayed a weekend with them, and they were normal drinkers. They drank properly. So I would have to sneak up to my room and pour a bottle of vodka into a glass and take a good gobble so that I could go back down and act like I was, being a gentleman drinker. It just times like that. I forgot about those days. They're long time ago, but there were days like that. So many other episodes of being intoxicated and saying stupid things I would normally never say. Driving a vehicle hammered. Fortunately, I never drove a helicopter hammered in 40-something years, but on my time off, I drove a car impaired, and look at the damage I could have done to others with my insanity. But I think I want to make a list someday of keep going, because it's amazing how the mind, you forget, but these things did take place, and that's why I'm here today. Thank you very much.
Does anyone else want to share, or shall I call on you? Let's do that. That's fun.
Hi, family. Of course, I want to share. Alex, alcoholic, and this is going to be the first time I just literally jumped out of my car. Jay took the lead on sharing, and I was like, I'm next. But this is the first time I don't actually have notes written down, or I wasn't actually in my book as you were reading the book. But a lot resonated with me out of there. I think I really particularly like this chapter because it's called the Family Afterwards. And it's the last pages of the 164 pages, right? So it brings me that step further, that life beyond the first 12 steps, that life beyond the rooms. You had said a few things in there, especially when we were talking about like, the other activities and things. Obviously, I've adopted bodybuilding in such a way that it is a competitive sport for me today and in my art form. But, I was thinking about stuff, and I remember early on in my recovery, I was so immersed in the program. But, my blessings cannot become my curses, and my recovery cannot come at the detriment of my quality time with my daughter. And it really was, because honestly, these rooms, you fellows, like the program was my 24/7. Like, I was no longer spending time with my daughter. Oh, I'd spend time with her when she'd come to a celebration meeting with me and pick out the cake and come enjoy some cake. But she would be like, Mom, like, you never spend time with me anymore. So that was one thing. And that just brings me to the family afterwards. I can't be so involved with my recovery family at the detriment of my own involvement and quality time with my own daughter, right? So that was a huge one. I really liked too, Lisa, how you were saying, the failing forward today, right? Failure breeds success. Everything's been done by trial and error. The big book was written by trial and error. The 12 and 12 was written by trial and error. Shit, the fact that we're all here was because that was trial and error for quite some time for me. It took me 28 years of trial and error and finally getting it right. Keep on failing forward, and definitely, success. Failure breeds success for me today. And I loved how you were saying, I always say our past don't define us, they refine us. We shall not regret the past nor wish to shut the door on it. This is my blueprint to life today. This is my design for better living, right? It's my template to life. I have to populate it on a daily basis in order to take from it what I need, right? And I have to work it on a daily basis. But not only that, I always tell, particularly my girls, especially when we're getting to that step 4, it's about looking at ourselves from a place of open curiosity and non-judgment, to be able to have that ability of self-examination today, that self-awareness that comes about, the fact that I able to identify these things and stop them dead in their tracks, to put myself in check, to keep my ego in check 24 hours a day before they transpire into the deplorable actions and reactions and unacceptable, inexcusable, and intolerable actions and reactions they used to in the past. That's huge. And I always say, right, our history is our blueprint to the future. And I'm going to wrap it up with that, how this chapter does talk about our assets today, because honestly, the exact, those 12 spiritual principles, and whether it's my honesty, my integrity, my discipline, my compassion today, my sisterly love, I don't say brotherly love, my sisterly love, my compassion, my empathy, my understanding, my forgiveness, my acceptance, my tolerance, all those things that I display today are definitely my character assets, and they're the exact opposite of my shortcomings. And our shortcomings can be our very becomings if we allow them to be. And that's what this program has given me. So I really liked that, our care, our liabilities versus our assets today. And we're always so hard on ourselves and talking in the negative, and our character defenses or defects of character, like we call them in the big book, or, our shortcomings and our wrongdoings and our maladjustments and everything. But we are some pretty incredible people, and like, let's focus on those assets. So I really love this chapter. Thank you so much for that, Lisa. Thank you, everybody, for sharing, Jay, so far, and then Chris next. And on that, I'm going to go crush me another 24. Wish y'all a blessed one and pass it the fuck on. And Lisa's not the only one that swears in this room. I get to, too. Bye.
Thank you, Alex. You sounded out of breath, so I can tell you ran from the car. You sprinted trying to be first, but maybe next time. But thank you for sharing. And what a great reminder, too, because, I think that AA has some paradoxes, right? We're told at one point, never say no to service, never say no to service. Well, if I never, ever say no, like, where do I draw the line? Oh, I don't know what I was going to say. So-and-so's graduating. Oh, sorry. I can't go to my daughter's graduation because I have to do service. I have to set up chairs. Well, this is why I think it's good to have a sponsor to check your thinking and not go to extremes. I think as alcoholics, we do things to the extreme. We can become obsessed. We can trade one obsession for another obsession. So it's good to have balance. I heard from a lady that her sponsor was telling her she was going to drop her because she had to reschedule their meetings because of her children's appointments. Well, you can't always know when your child has to go to the doctor, and there's this balance, right? We have to do this honest balance between sponsor and sponsee. Are you just canceling because you're avoiding the work? And then you need to know that as a sponsor, I'm going to get frustrated because I've set aside time for you. And now you're telling me my time is not as valuable as your time. But we also have to do a give and take. There has to be an understanding. There are times when life just happens. My partner got jealous. My old partner got jealous of AA and the time I spent in AA. 2 nights a week, people. I wasn't going crazy. Wasn't there 7 nights a week throwing down with AA 2 nights a week. But one of them happened to be a Friday night, and that was the night that she wanted to go out and wanted me to come along. Some relationships end for a reason, God did for me what I could not do for myself. So I was not leaving that relationship. Ever. It's like claw marks in that woman. All right, Chris, over to you.
Thanks. Hey, alcoholic, Chris. I'm glad you went back to the director because I'm having a really rough time with that today. My friend drove me down to my sponsee's house, and she's in the program, and she was telling me what they're doing and what's happening here and what's happening there. And I got really frustrated because the guys in this town are lip service, and it's driving me absolutely nuts. And I got so frustrated today. And I thought, there's nothing I can change, nothing. You've got to change up here. You got to stop being the director and stop. And I don't know how this will happen. But man, I'm glad you went back there today to remind me that, hey, I gotta really put God into my life and get these other people out. That's all I got. Thank you.
You just lied to me. You said you don't know how it's going to happen, and then you told everybody exactly how it's going to happen. I have to put God in my life. You have to let God be your director, and you just did that. So, and here's another way that it happens. This was something that was troubling you, and then I happened to mention those pages today, which were exactly what you say you needed to hear. No one told me that. Stuff like that just happens, right? That's how it happens. Samantha, come on in.
Hi, everybody. Samantha, most definitely an alcoholic. Thanks very much, Lisa, and everybody that's shared. I was just thinking, I think it's back on page 83, I'm not quite sure, where it says there's a long period of reconstruction ahead. I remember reading that and thinking to myself, yeah, that's about my family, and it goes on to say, I must take the lead. I used to pray for myself for patience, kindness, tolerance, love, and forgiveness every day. And now I pray for us as a family for that going forward, because my family have no program. Nobody's on a 12-step program in this house. And for context, I'm with my husband 36 years. We're married 30 years. He has never lifted a drink or substance in his life. And I'm the alcoholic. So that's setting the scene here. He's an Irish man, and that's the way it is. So anything they see got to do with a 12-step program is me. I'm the lighthouse, that's it. So whatever they hear and see, and they're looking and wondering about it, and now and again things come up where things are thrown at me that might have happened in the past. If they get vexed or anxious or agitated, or they're just having a bad day, something might be said, and I've learned to just take it on the chin, not blame myself, acknowledge it, own it, even if I don't know if it's true or not, because a lot of my drinking was blackout, so I have no idea if it's true or not. I just accept it, and I just move on. I just let it run off me like water off a duck's back. I have no choice, just to give it over and surrender and stay going forward. And those events have become fewer and less frequent now as years have rolled on, But for me, it's living in the moment, it's living in the day with my behavior changes and my living amends. I think it's somewhere around one of the publications of Living Sober. It comes up with that, just doing the next right thing, really. You're talking about time there, my time and God's time run on two different clocks. I've come to understand that because I wanted microwave spirituality, microwave recovery, and I got crockpot stuff. Do you know what I mean? Just forever going. That's the only way I could describe it. And I've said this before, and I said it to Lisa recently. When I go to the future, I never come back with good news. So I really keep everything in the day. I have never come back with anything other than bad news. Something's going to happen. The sky's falling like Chicken Little. So I kind of stay in the day. So my family is exactly where we are right now. The new structures will take years to complete. I don't think I'll ever see them completed. I think it's an ongoing, my own view, it's an ongoing movement, like lava moving, continuously forming stuff. It's a very fluid thing, our life here and structures in our life, and it depends what comes at us every day. But all I know is I have not drank, I haven't had the need to drink, or the want or craving since I went through the pages of this big book, continually doing them, and surrendered my life to a higher power, God, my understanding every single day. I only have today, it's one day at a time, it's always now. What time is it now? I have a clock face that says that every hour is now, 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 all the way around the clock. There's no 1, 2, 3. It's just now, because God is only in the now. I stand, the sunlight of spirit is right now, right here with you guys on the screen, So that's all I have to share tonight. Thanks.
That's wonderful. Thank you. Yeah, when Samantha told me that, I'm like, that was a great line. And I thought, I'm going to have to use that on the podcast, and now I don't. You got to use it yourself, so it's on there forever. Stamped, trademarked, copyrighted, sealed, and delivered. Samantha S. It was a good one. Whenever I go to the future, I never come back with good news. Isn't that true, right? Time travel never ends up well. The butterfly effect. I did jump to page 83 when you mentioned it. I didn't find the line you mentioned, but what I did find, because it's highlighted, was the spiritual life is not a theory. We have to live it unless one's family expresses a desire to live upon spiritual principles. We think we ought not to urge them. We should not talk incessantly to them about spiritual matters. They will change in time. There's that word again. Our behavior, exactly what Samantha said, being the lighthouse, being the beacon, our behavior will convince them more than our words. Remember the wasted words we threw around before, right? The deception. I was a master of deception. All right. Christina, come on in.
Christina, alcoholic, still an alcoholic. I got my 6 months yesterday. The funny thing is, I was really depressed because it's Friday night and I had no one to hang out with or celebrate with. So I was feeling really, really shitty. And I was having urges again and I was upset. And thankfully, I called my sponsor and she was really good about stuff. Then I had to deal with a tech issue. And the funny thing is, I dealt with it really well this time. In the past, I would have lost it and got really mad and all that jazz. Hopefully that issue is resolved because my calls kept dropping and I don't know whose end it was on. It was my end or her end. So I decided to take responsibility and call my provider to see if they could strengthen my connection. I never had to do this before. I talk about strengthening my connection literally and figuratively. I was like trying to get my connection strengthened with my higher power because I tend to take my will back too much. And I love reading this chapter tonight and underlining and taking notes on the side. I really love big book studies. I really need more of them. And I learned so much in this short little time. Yeah, I need to let God be the director a lot more. And today I'm proud of myself because I went to an outdoor meeting in the park. They have a seasonal meeting and my sponsor was there and others I knew were there too. It was just what I needed. I even brought my umbrella in case of rain. That's how bad I needed a meeting today. And I was really grateful that I was able to go to a big book study outside and now another one here tonight. Because I was planning on going out again to another meeting and then I realized this is a big book study online. And so when God directs my steps, I feel like a happier person. And this is so new to me. I'm not used to feeling that like that yet. But it's nice when my higher power directs my steps and goes, get your ass to some meetings. Weekends are hard for you. And it's really nice to be in AA. And yes, I nearly relapsed again. I nearly lost my shit a lot of times. But I'm really grateful that my sponsor made me this 5-month stone. And eventually she's going to make a 6-month stone. And I hold it in my hand. And I have to hold it in my hand quite a bit just so I don't screw up again. And And I like how you can just hold it right in your hands, really solid. And that's my higher power being solid and giving me evidence that my life has value and worth, even though I'm still figuring out what my assets are. I don't really know. I haven't had anyone tell me what my assets are. Coming from a crappy family and being in the mental health system my whole life. So I'm still trusting that I have assets. I'm trusting that I'm learning something. Openness to me is an asset. There was a time I couldn't listen to anything. And now when I'm in AA, all I want to do is listen and learn and be humble and willing. Outside in the world, it's much harder. A lot of stuff I don't want to hear because it's not AA. It's not a way of designed way of living out there in the world when people are acting up on the streetcar and I'm trying to get to a meeting, right? So I'm really grateful for these meetings here and for the book and for everybody here. And thanks for my sobriety. And I wish you all a great night. Keep coming back.
Christina. Thank you, Christina. Congratulations on your 6 months. You've got a beautiful sponsor. I know her. She's a lovely lady. The fact that she gave you a rock that she designed, that's so heartwarming. And see, you would have deprived yourself of a 7-month rock if you had a drank. So keep coming back, stay the course. In the chat, I put this link for our meeting. You were asking about Solution Seekers. It meets every day at 7 a.m. So you can start your day with a meeting, and it's good that when you're feeling lonely, go to a meeting in person. Get out there. All right. And let's see here. Does anyone else want to share before we? Okay, Kelly, come on in.
Hello, everyone. Kelly, alcoholic. First, I just want to share. I also have a rock that I also use. It's very handy. Grounding rock. It's very close to me and I need it. I just realized about an hour or so ago that probably for the first real time since becoming sober almost 9 months ago, that I was gearing up to wanting to have a drink. Now, what I mean by that is I had a busy day at work and it was getting a little bit overwhelming. And I'm only just back to work after quite a long leave. And in the past, I would go home and just open up a bottle and I would have this feeling first. And I'm just realizing that now. And so I'm very glad to be here and hopping on to here and noticing that. And that is a lot of what I've been doing a lot lately is noticing, taking a step, taking a moment, or taking a step back, taking a moment to notice. Now, during the reading today, I got quite emotional because when we're talking about our family last week, and I was very, oh, woe is me. Oh, the family always celebrated mom so much on Mother's Day. And they didn't last weekend. And I was like, oh, that's because I drank and I was horrible and blah, 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 me. And no, it's not. Listen, they're young adult kids and we were busy away last weekend and my partner masterminds it every time. And so just me thinking that the kids would actually do something without the mastermind is ridiculous. And so, but, like, it's just like, I've been doing all this hard work and it just, sometimes it's just so funny and how ridiculous our alcoholic minds can be. But I do get emotional because my oldest child did move out during, the worst part of my drinking and they're still stuck in the past. So it gets tricky sometimes, but I have therapy, they have therapy, and it's slowly getting better. So the whole time takes time is sorry, is really relevant. And I also needed these words today. So I appreciate that and thank you.
Thank you. One of my sponsees said to me a long time ago now, because she was separated from her family and a couple of her older kids, hate's a strong word, but they were really unhappy with her and didn't talk to her anymore. And she said, I am just praying that they will forgive me one day so I can have them back. And sometimes I don't have a filter. I know, shocking, groundbreaking. And out of my mouth blurted these words. Well, that's rather selfish. Why don't you pray for them to forgive you so that they can be healed? because the prayer was, "Dear God, please let them forgive me so that I can get them back in my life." And so she flipped the prayer around. And within a short time after, the family got reunited and she was back in that house again. Sometimes things like that happen, sometimes they don't. But the important part was that she flipped the dialogue from one of being, "This is what I want, can you make that happen?" to, "What would God have me be?" God would have me be selfless and think of what's best for my kid. And that is not directed at you, Kelly. That was maybe this experience might help you. That's all.
Thank you. It does.
Okay. All right. I love you. Okay. Saskatchewan, Samantha. Come on in, and then I think we'll close with the prayer, and then we have one share, a secret share after the meeting. Woo! Stay tuned.
Oh, now I should have waited. I'm Samantha also. I am from Saskatchewan, and I am, in fact, an alcoholic. So I guess I'm in the right place. Thank you so much for this wonderful study. I love listening to all of you. Experience is the thing of supreme value in life. I look at that in two different ways in my time right now. One of which, because maybe for some, I might seem on the earlier to the program end of the alcoholic. I turned 35 and I'm about to celebrate 3 years in this program. And I came in my 20s too, so I knew for a while that I was destined to do something in Alcoholics Anonymous. And here I am, using my painful past as an infinite value to others. Like, I love some of these words. The dark past is the greatest possession you have. I have never been somebody driven by material things, although the material things that I do have, I cherish. I'm somebody who really enjoys old things, and I really enjoy taking care of my things and fixing things and, just looking at the things I do have, the inventory of skills, assets, liabilities, the things that cost me time and money. Time is the greatest commodity I have today. Patience. Being able to be patient with myself as I grow. We grow by our willingness to face and rectify errors and convert them into assets. And so as I am willing to do that, my assets list grows, even though my material goods are not growing. In fact, I make less money these days, but I am far happier than I've ever been. And that is in no short connection to my time in Alcoholics Anonymous, and finding that balance of being a part of this program and making time for it, and also making time to listen to my family and their needs, and stop the trajectory of my selfishness that is ever present in everything that I do, because I'm an alcoholic first and foremost, and I'm also a human being. So I think me, me, me all the time. And when I pray and I actively, ask for the next right move instead of dictating how things should be done, which is a new found skill I'm trying. Things work out a lot better. They just work out a lot better, and it has nothing to do with me, and I don't have to figure out why it happens. I just have to keep doing it. So I'm just really grateful that we get to come into these rooms and we get to use our struggle to help each other, because, your struggles help me, and I get to be a working part of this thing in AA that works today. It works for me. It can work for you. And that's why I always show up, because I'm always going to learn something if I create an experience. If I just show up, I'm giving myself experience. So it doesn't matter if you're new, it doesn't matter if you're old, it doesn't matter what age you are, your experience is always going to be valuable, because it's going to relate to somebody else who's, a year behind you, or their family's in a dark spot that you used to be. And now they can see the proof is in the pudding, and there is a way out, and there is a solution. So proud to be here, guys. Thanks, Lisa. This is great.
Thanks, buddy. I'm glad you can show up. So everyone's on different time zones. Oh, sorry, I'm getting a call. Not right now. Everyone's on different timelines. We have people in the United Kingdom, people in Ireland, obviously Saskatchewan. So all these different time zones coming together. And I really appreciate that you all try to find time to connect and join this meeting. For those of you who missed it in person, hopefully you're listening on the podcast. And if you want to catch up on any previous episodes of the podcast, they're available on Podbean and iTunes under A Shot Glass of Recovery. So thank you so much for joining us on the show today. We're going to finish with our secret share, which none of you on the podcast will hear. You'll just have to come to one of these virtual in-person meetings next time. But for now, we'll close with the Serenity Prayer. You can all unmute and we'll say it together. God,
God.
Grant me
Courage
the
to
strategy
accept
to
accept the things I cannot change.
courage
Courage to change the things I can. And the
And
wisdom
what-
to know the everything.
Everything you do, the answer lies inside you.